Hey everybody, got an awesome video for you here today. Today I'm up in the large grow tent and we are going to be feeding our young vegetable seedlings here. I got a bunch of young pepper plants that I got started. These are all for the backyard, and when we do grow in the backyard, I tend to get started on the inside first. So right now it's about mid-April. It's still a little too early to put these plants outside. So we got them inside, indoors, growing in this grow tent here. Right? And we have them under this very large Mars Hydro light, right? Now this light is going to be kind of mimicking the sun here, but now it is on us to feed these plants and keep them watered up until the time that they have to go out in the backyard. Right now I have them on an 18-hour on light cycle and a 6-hour off, to mimic the summertime sunlight for them, their phase of sunlight to darkness, okay? And what I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to show you what it is and how it is that I feed some of these seedlings, and at what point do I start feeding some of these seedlings. Now we're going to get started over here. I'm going to bring y'all on over to my little area here where I have all my nutrients and stuff, okay? Now first off, over here I got some dechlorinated water. This is tap water that I have allowed to dechlorinate, and the reason we take that, like, obviously tap water has chlorine in it. We don't want to feed that chlorine to our plants. There is no need to remove the chlorine in any way with any chemicals or anything like that. Chlorine will dissipate by itself. It'll just go away. Usually, the majority of any chlorine that's in the tap water is gone within 24 hours. So what I do is I'll fill up whatever bucket of water, whatever amount of water I'm going to need the next day. I'll fill it up the day before and just let it sit there to dechlorinate, okay? And that's what this has been doing. This little jug of water has been sitting here for about 24 hours. I poured it into this jug yesterday. Now I'm just letting it dechlorinate, and now it's about time. And this is just regular tap water. So my tap water starts at about 140, 150 parts per million, which is good for tap water, right? You can see that there, 147 parts per million. Now what I'm going to do is I typically start feeding the seedlings when they're at about week 2, right? You can do week 2, you could do week 3. I find that when they're about 2 weeks of age, if you don't start feeding them a little something, they're going to start to go into nitrogen deficiency. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to show you what it is that I'm going to be feeding them now that we're getting started on it. The seedlings are about 2 to 3 weeks old, and we're going to start feeding some of them. Now the ones that are not, the ones that are only about a week old, I'm going to leave them as is and just give them a little bit of dechlorinated tap water without giving anything in it. You could do a little bit of seaweed extract, which would be something like this. Ocean Magic. Okay, another thing you can do as well is the Kelp-tastic, right? Some kind of like little powder that you can sprinkle on and use as a top dressing and feed your plants slowly. These are all options, okay? Now what I'm going to be showing you here today is what I'm going to be feeding about a 2 to 3 week old pepper plant that we have growing indoors. And what I'm going to be using there is the uranium veg. This is a nutrient, it's a powdered nutrient that you mix into water, stir it up, and parts per million it to your liking. Now I'm only going to be using a little bit, and I'm going to be doing a little bit and then a little bit more and a little bit more, and I'm going to be testing the parts per million. The reason I'm going to be doing a little bit at a time is because it's harder. Well, you can't really remove it. What you can do is I'm going to have to add more water in order to dilute it. So what I'm going to do instead of doing that is I'm just going to start off with a little bit. This is just a little touch, which might even get me there anyway. I really want to be at about, including my tap water, at about 150. I want to be at about 300 to 350, which means I'm only giving the plants about 200 parts per million of real nutrients. Right, so I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to add a few beneficials. This is the Enricher. This is a natural plant booster from T&B Naturals. Y'all already know what it is with T&B Naturals. I'm going to pop a little bit of this in there. This is just like trace amount stuff. You don't really need a lot, right? We're just going to do some trace amounts here. There you go. Just a little something just to get these plants going off. If whatever nutrient or whatever it is you're using, for example, right here, we're going to be using Vita Thrive propagation solution. If it has instructions at the back, don't follow the instructions to the full, where this would be like 1 ml per liter. I would probably say end up going about a half an ml per liter, or what you can do is just do like a quick drop, right? Boom. Just a really quick drop in there, and that's all you do. If you feel like you've put in too much, you can just kind of douse it down with water. Or what you can also do is use this little syringe here, one of these really small syringes, to pull up like a half an ml, whatever it is you're going to be using, right? So that's a really good beneficial to be using there. We just popped in the Vita Thrive propagation solution. This is for like seedlings and stuff, right? So now we're going to be checking our parts per million. And we're at about 300 almost. Look at that. 261. Good. We don't want to be at 800 and then have to drop it. I'm going to add a little bit more, and you can see like nothing, just trace amounts, maybe even get us up to 350 parts per million. And I think we're going to be in the good right now regardless. Even if we're at like 400, we should still be fine. We're going to call it 291. We're going to call it 300. Some of this stuff still has yet to dissolve. You can see at the bottom there, it doesn't fully dissolve right away, right? So that 290 in about 3-4 minutes time, that 290 parts per million is probably going to be about 320 parts per million. Now you have the Ocean Magic. I don't really like to add that stuff too much. I do it every once in a while. Today I'm not going to be doing it. I'm going to show you why. Because we're going to be feeding the plants some of this Kelptastic. This is an amazing product from a company called T&B Naturals. This is a Canadian company out in the BC area. This is North Atlantic kelp meal. So they came all the way out to the Maritimes to source this amazing kelp. And what they did is they kind of put it into like this powder. And I'm going to show you what it is that we're going to be doing. You can see how it's starting to dissolve over there. You can see that? Boom. You got to keep stirring it. Every time you're doing that, you can be under the assumption that the parts per million is picking up a little bit, okay? So now let's head on over to our plants. Okay. Now you can see over here, we got some of the little ones over here, right? These are actually 2 eggplants that I just got started on. This one looks like it needs a little something. You can see it's really dry. I'm not going to feed it what we're feeding right here. I'm just going to give that some dechlorinated tap water, and that'll be in the good. This one over here already got some dechlorinated tap water yesterday. That's looking fine. Over here, inside of here, I actually have a little tomato clone. I took one of the suckers off my tomato plant, and I'm just checking up on this. And because this is a clone, it's already basically a mature plant. You can also feed this plant the nutrient as well. So what I like to do when they're in these little cups is I'll just kind of submerge the pea pod in there, right? Let it get a little soaked, right? And then put that back in there. And then put our little cup as our humidity dome. That's just because I only have that one little clone over there, right? Again, over here, give it a big stir, stir, stir. Now you can see some of these are a little bit larger than the others, right? These ones are larger. And then that one's a little smaller. I got started on them a few days apart. The ones that are a little smaller, like that one right there, if you wanted to, you can leave that off for now. Because that's just hit about the 2-week mark, and this is almost at the 2.5-week mark. These ones are about 6 days ahead of those. You don't really have to, but I'm going to hit them off anyway. And here's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to grab this Kelptastic, and I got this spoon in here, right? This little cup. And I'm just going to come to the ones that are dry and they need a little something, and it's just going to be like a light sprinkle. You can see that? Boom. And I'm going to call that good. Then I'm going to come over here and just give that a light sprinkle, and I'm going to call that good, right? Come over here, give that a light sprinkle, and we're going to call that good. So I'm just going to come to all of those that look like they're really dry and they're going to need to be fed right now. And I'm just going to give them a little sprinkle of this. That's all. I'm not like dousing the plant in it. I'm not just throwing it all up in there, right? Just a little sprinkle. Yep. All right. All right. And then a few over here. This is just a little beneficial just to help as the water is going in there. It's going to help dissolve some of this, and it's going to act as a little feed beneficial for the plants. Certainly not a full feed, right? Because if we were going to be really feeding these plants, we would be getting into the, 400, 500 parts per million. 200, 300 parts per million can even be, it's an arguable trace amount, right? Now we're just going to come over here. And right now, you don't really have to soak them through to runoff, by the way. You could just kind of, start them off with a little something. Boom, that's it, right? You can let these, let the root system pick up because it's a small root system right now. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to just completely swamp that cup. It's going to take days in order for that to dry off. So if you're just giving it a little bit of a tease, if you will, it's going to take that, it's going to dry off, it's going to strengthen the roots, and they're going to be asking for more. So that's all I'm going to be doing here. I'm not really looking for a runoff. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to avoid a runoff. I just want to give it a little bit, satisfy the root system, give this plant a little something to drink, and then I'll be back in 2-3 days to give it a little bit of something else. And that's all that we're doing. And I also, over here, it's about time. If it's 2-3 weeks of age in your plants, it's definitely time to get started on carbon dioxide emissions. This bottle here just kind of hangs. You can see there's a hole at the top. There's stuff in there. There's a powder in there that you mix with warm water, and you just give it a little bit of shake. You can see there it says shake daily for optimal performance. What it's saying is that if you shake it, it's going to help release or activate the carbon dioxide that's in there. It's going to start releasing the carbon dioxide through that hole, and that's going to start coming down here as it's falling, get into the plant zone, and then the fans are going to start picking it up and moving it around. But that's really going to help our plants pick up over here. So for now, I'm going to leave it as is, about 18 hours on, 6 hours off, very light nutrients, and I'm just going to increase the value of the nutrients. So right now we were at about 300 parts per million. The next time I feed them, I'll probably be at about 320, and then 350, and then starting to get into the real feed. But that'll be just before we start getting these plants into the outdoors, and by then they'll probably be about 2 months old. So they're really going to need about 400 to 600 parts per million, depending on the size of the plant and what kind of plant you're growing. Well, that's basically how I do it. If anybody has any questions, please leave it in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. Y'all take care. Have a good one now.